This video is going to be where I'm going to share 5 tips that I use while using DaVinci 17 for my videos to editing. It's geared more towards beginners, but hopefully everyone else will be able to get some useful information out of it as well. The first one I'm going to use is where you might want to have 2 open projects open at the same time, and you kind of want to switch back and forth between them very easily. Go down to the bottom right hand corner where the little house symbol is. This is your project manager, and if you click on that and then come up to where the menu pops up, and anywhere within this gray area, if you'll just right click and make sure that dynamic project switching is clicked and selected, then at that point you can go up here and click on any one of the projects that you might have listed. I'll just double click on it, and that will open the project up. And now what it does is at the very top center here, this will give you a drop down so that you can easily switch between the 2 projects. Now, depending on how big they are and the type of computer you have, this may take a little bit more time. But here again, this allows you to kind of switch back and forth between 2 projects very easily. Now, you can do that from this little this header bar up at the top. You can come over to File and go all the way down and say switch project here. This does the same thing, and it'll have a little check mark by the one that you actually have open at the time. You can also close a project at the same time. So I'm going to switch back over to the original one that I had up, and then go back up to File and go down to Close Project, and I'll select on the Heist one, and that will go ahead and close it. So that manages and takes care of it and gets it out of the way. So I just have the one back up at this point. The second tip I'll share is when you're trying to scrub through your video clip, and let's say there's a certain point you're trying to get to it, you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to advance or go back 1 frame at a time. For example, I moved my playhead over to where I was looking and kind of get it close. I can use the right arrow key on my keyboard, and by pressing that I can move it forward by 1 frame at a time. In reverse, I can press the left arrow key and it will go back 1 frame at a time. That way I can get the playhead right to the exact position that I'm looking for. And in addition to that, using the up and down arrow keys, that will also help move it as well. By pressing the down arrow key, it takes it to the end of that clip. By pressing the up arrow key, it takes it to the beginning of the clip. Now, for example, let's say you had another file on the end of this one, and you press the down arrow key. What it's going to do, it's going to take it right to the end of the clip that you were on, not to the end of the entire timeline, just the end of that clip. So that's something to keep in mind with. This is a very good way to try and get to the exact precise point of where you're wanting to get to. Tip number 3 is where you might have multiple clips, and you're working on one in particular and you don't want to get rid of the second one. You just kind of want to get it out of the way a little bit. You can disable it, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and drag in this clip right here, and I'll come over to it. It's where I want it to be, but I really don't want to work on this right now. So what I want to do is I want to disable it. So by clicking on it, then by pressing the letter D on my keyboard, D for disable, it will kind of shade it out, but it doesn't get rid of it. That way it's there, but it's kind of hidden, disabled, and that way you can come back and work on it later, and that way you can continue editing on the current timeline without affecting that one. And to bring it back in, say you're ready to work on it again, just press the letter D again, and it brings it in for you to edit with. Very simple, very easy to use, and it works nice, and so that you don't get everything cluttered, and you can kind of work it one at a time. Tip number 4 is going to be to grab a single frame and use it as a still picture. Very easy to do. For example, let me go ahead and click right down here and just say, for example, I like this frame right here and I want to use it for future reference, or maybe even in a trailer somewhere along the line. What I'll do is I'll come down to the color tab, and by selecting that and then coming up and putting my mouse anywhere within the frame that I'm looking at, and then right clicking and then say grab steel. What that does is it grabs that steel for me. Then I can come up here and right click on this, and then I can say export. And then once you do that, you can put it in the directory that you want, and then you can come down to the drop down menu and you can save it to these multiple types of file formats. In this case, I want to create a JPEG, so I'll just put it there and I'll just name it 1234 for right now, and then I'll say export. And what that did is it went ahead and grabbed that single frame, made a JPEG for me. So if I go back over to my edit tab, bring up my file manager, and I already have this set to the directory that I was looking for, and here it is, 1234. I'll go ahead and bring that and drag it in. Go ahead and lower this down, and then I can bring that in as a single picture, and I'll put it to the end, come to the end, and there it is. It automatically puts it at 5 seconds. So that's a quick and easy way to add a still picture of something within your clip that you want to try and hold on to. Very quick and very simple to do. Before I get over to tip number 5, just a real quick extra bonus tip is I would recommend start using bins. This project that I'm working on here, this was just set up so that I can do this video. But over here, there you can create bins, and this allows you, they're like folders. You can put files in there and manage them a lot better. I do have a separate video dealing with bins, and I'll put that in the link and put a pointer up at the top right screen. Okay, for my last tip, number 5, what I'm going to do is show how to bring in only the part of the clip that you want to be using. For example, this one that I've been using about for OBS, if I come up here and double click on this, double left click, it brings in the entire file, but I want to go ahead and just cut out part of this right now before I bring it down and start adding it into my timeline. So if I click along the line to where I want it to start, I can press I on my keyboard for in, and it'll chop off that front part. Then I can also do the same thing on the back side, and I can click around on here until I find the point where I want to clip it on the, let's back that up just a little bit, and then I can press the O on the keyboard for out. And what that did is it kind of clipped it on the right side as well, clipping it on the front side. Now I can drag this and put it in my timeline right down here, and it's done the edit for me. It's already clipped it out. Very helpful and very useful. So if you can quickly just grab the part that you want without having to bring in the whole part and having to edit down in the timeline area, you can just do it right up in the top screen. Very helpful. I hope these 5 tips and the extra bonus one I put in there helps you a little bit. Like I said, this is probably geared more for beginners, but I do hope that others find it useful.